There is kind of unbelievable optimism and interest in looking at Bangladesh as an investment destination. American companies are definitely looking at Bangladesh, and I think that will continue. And so it's just a matter of closing the deal.
Is the U.S. working as a mediator to bring BNP, largest opposition party, to election?
Simply put, no. We are not working as a mediator. That is not our job.
U.S. Ambassador Peter Haas, welcome to our studio for today's discussion.
Thank you very much.
You are in Bangladesh at a very interesting time. You are having an election, and the world order is shifting in many ways. So I hope we will have a very interesting discussion in the next half an hour or so.
I'm sure we will.
And basically we'll focus on trade and investment.
Excellent.
So America is, I think, the biggest investor in Bangladesh.
Yep.
And how do you think the U.S. can strengthen its trade and investment in Bangladesh? What are the real hurdles you feel? I have seen you talking about data protection law and all these things. So how do you think that, what can be done to attract U.S. investment in a bigger way?
Mm-hmm. So I was just in Washington last week and also met with the executive board of the U.S. Bangladesh Business Council. And there is kind of unbelievable optimism and interest in looking at Bangladesh as an investment destination for people coming the first time, or at the possibility of increasing investment in Bangladesh. And so people are looking at Bangladesh, they see the growth rates, they see just the tens of millions of people who have been brought out of poverty and the increasing middle class. And so there's a lot of excitement. But people don't just wake up in the morning and say, oh, I think I'm going to invest in Bangladesh. They wake up and they say, I need to invest someplace overseas. And then they look at Bangladesh, they look at Vietnam, they look at India, they look at your competitors, frankly. And then they start comparing, okay, where is the investment climate best? Where can I get products in and out most quickly? Where are the best transportation linkages? What do the supply chains look like? Can I move my money in and out quickly? Will I be paid? And so it's all of those questions that, as Bangladesh is seeking to attract more investment, that they need to look at themselves, not just in terms of their own progress, which has been remarkable, but how do they stack up against their competitors? And I think this will be all the more important as Bangladesh graduates from LDC status to middle income status. But American companies are definitely looking at Bangladesh. As you said, we are the largest foreign direct investor here, and I think that will continue. And so it's just a matter of closing the deal.
Okay. And a lot of, because of the tension between US and China, a lot of American companies are shifting from China and looking for new places to invest. Do you think Bangladesh could be one of the coveted places for US companies to invest?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the entire world saw after COVID what happens when you're overly reliant on a single country for manufacturing and the need to diversify supply chains. So in the event of something catastrophic like COVID, that you have multiple places that you are supplying yourself from. Bangladesh is certainly one of the countries that people will look at. And even during COVID, we saw Bangladesh stepping up and playing a role in PPE and in other things that we needed for COVID. But then going further, I can imagine all kinds of possibilities in Bangladesh, either in high-end textiles or pharmaceuticals. And so again, it's just a matter of Bangladesh creating the environment where companies say, I'm going to invest there.
And talking about textiles, we used to enjoy duty-free access to U.S. market, and which was suspended in 2013. Now Bangladesh has stopped the compulsory fumigation of U.S. cotton. And RMG-owned manufacturers, they now think that this is a ground for demanding GSP back. So how do you respond?
So there's a couple of things here. One is GSP has never ever covered RMG or textiles. It was never part. And second, although we're very close on cotton fumigation, it's still not a done deal. We're still waiting for one final agreement by the government of Bangladesh, which we think will come, and which we think will be a great advantage for U.S. cotton exporters, whom have the best cotton in the world. And so I know, and I've been in conversations, I met with BGMEA yesterday, and I've been in conversations. I know that Bangladesh would like to be able to import U.S. cotton, manufacture textiles, and re-export it to the United States duty-free. And one of the things that I've been encouraging Bangladesh is that it requires an actual change in U.S. law, which in any democracy, getting a change in law is never easy. But what I've talked to Bangladesh about is really starting to work with our Congress and trying to figure out how to get that law changed. But again, the amazing thing is that we're still the largest market for Bangladesh exports. And so it's done a remarkable job in remaining very, very competitive in our market.
Okay. Just another curious question that a lot of countries, I would say a number of countries are now shifting from dollar in their foreign trade. So this de-dollarization thing, how do you look at it?
One, I think it's important to look at the difference between how much people are talking about de-dollarization and moving towards other currency relative to actually how feasible it is and how many are actually doing it. So in general, and Bangladesh sees this, if you say spend more dollars than you earn and export, you run a deficit and you have problems with reserves. The same would happen with yuan or any other currency. And so, Bangladesh imports far more from China than it exports. And so there would be a shortage of yuan to settle their debts. The second thing is to look at is internationally, what is the most recognized currency? Which currency would you most like to have in your pocket at any time? Which country you think has the most stable financial system, the most independent central bank, and kind of what you can rely on long term. And so just like crypto and the talk of people replacing dollar with crypto a few years ago, I think there's some of the same here, and that the dollarization or the dollar will remain important for the foreseeable future.
Okay. And let's talk about a little bit about the Ukraine war. While you and Russia, you are doing a proxy war maybe, and Russia is invading Ukraine and all these things going on. One of the fallouts of this war is, on the poorer countries like us, and we are suffering from high price of fuel. Now, you have that sanction on import of fuel from Russia, but a lot of countries are really importing them, like India. So why Bangladesh can do the same thing?
So first of all, I would I distinctly remember that U.S. said that it will help the poorer countries get the Russian well, have to have their access to the Russian well. Mm-hmm. What is happening there? Okay. So first of all, let me start off by praising Sheikh Hasina and the joint statement during her visit to Japan, where she clearly stated that Russia's invasion of Ukraine was illegal and in violation of international norms set by the United Nations. And secondly, she called for a respect of the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Ukraine. I think that's really important, that as a starting point for all of these conversations, we remember that this started off because of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, and that Russia could end it at any moment. The second point is that we have never had sanctions and do not have sanctions on oil and gas and fertilizer and agriculture. Those do not exist. It's not easy to get Russian oil, but there are no sanctions in place. And third, the other thing that we've done working with G7 countries is we've coordinated with those countries, including India, that are importing Russian oil to set a minimum price that they will pay, or a maximum price ceiling that they will pay. And so, yes, they're still buying Russian oil, but they're paying far less than the market price is for it. So when they're able to refine it and re-export it, it still remains at a price below market price. And so it's something that we've spent a lot of time thinking about, is how not to impact the rest of the world because of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine.
Okay. Let's turn back to the Rohingya issue. The latest development is the China-backed effort for repatriation of the Rohingya. How do you look at it?
I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of Bangladesh's generosity over these past almost 6 years. Nobody expected, when Bangladesh opened its hearts and opened its borders to the Rohingya, that they would still be here this much later. The United States is by far the largest donor to this effort at $2.1 billion. And everyone's ultimate goal is repatriation. And I've seen press reports as well about the possible discussions between China, Myanmar, and Bangladesh. But the one thing that I would say is that it's really important that the United Nations, UNHCR, and the largest donors like the United States are consulted and are actually part of these conversations. Because based on at least what I see in Myanmar, the conditions are not ripe for refugees to return to a place where they are safe, where they have a dignified existence, where they have documents and citizenship, and where they don't have to fear another round of genocide. So I think it's really important to keep repatriation, and it is the ultimate goal, but to have a very clear-eyed approach to it about when the time is right.
Mr. Ambassador, there are a lot of Bangladeshi students going to USA for study. But I think that it is a little bit of a hassle to get visa, and there's a huge backlog of visa at the embassy end. So what are you doing to ease the situation?
First of all, we love it when Bangladeshis study in the United States. And I think one of the myths out there, there's a couple of myths out there. One is the question of visas. The second is the question of affordability. And so we spend a lot of time, and we have something called Education USA at the embassy to educate people about studying in the United States. And the reality is that there's lots of scholarship money. And I think as a result, the number of Bangladeshis studying in the United States is the fastest growing of any country in the world.
Even more than China?
It's the fastest growing. So there may be more Chinese students, but it's the fastest growing. And it's now the 13th largest group, Bangladesh being the 8th largest, most populous country in the world. So there's still some room to grow there. But we really encourage it, and we are making every effort to ensure that every Bangladeshi who has been accepted by a U.S. university will have an interview in time to start classes if they're qualified. In this past year, we had many multiples of Bangladeshis applying for U.S. visas for student reasons than ever before. And what we did is a series of what we call Super Fridays, where we bring in our consular staff on Fridays, and all they do is interview students, just to make sure that we get everyone in time so that they can get a decision in time to join classes.
And last question is about our politics. So is the U.S. working as a mediator to bring BNP, the largest opposition party, to election?
Simply put, no. We are not working as a mediator. That is not our job. That is not our responsibility. And it's no secret that we call for free and fair elections here in Bangladesh. And we are looking at ways that we can help Sheikh Hasina and her stated desire to have free and fair elections and to encourage that process. But bringing in a political party into the equation is not something that that we do, because ultimately it is up to each and every political party to make its own decision about whether or not it wants to participate in elections. And I assume that part of that decision is whether or not they think they can participate in the elections and be confident that if they get more votes than any other party, that they will form a government. And so it's not our role. That we hope that those are the kinds of elections that will take place, where everyone is confident that the will of the Bangladeshi people will be respected.
So thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your presence here today.
Right.
And it was quite interesting talking to you on a number of issues. So thank you once again.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.